lesson 5 already. So we were just chatting a bit about the upcoming Thanksgiving weekend and some plans. And let's dive into our lesson for today. So it's lesson 5. So today we're going to start working with MongoDB, and we're going to start implementing create, read, update, and delete, better known as CRUD operations in our application. So we're going to look at NoSQL databases kind of at a high level, talk about what they are, how they are similar, and how they differ from the relational databases that we're used to using. We're going to set up MongoDB so we can use a cloud instance for this, which will be free for us to integrate. We're going to introduce the Mongoose Npm Package. So Mongoose is a data access library for Node to connect to a MongoDB database. So it would be similar to the entity framework in ASP.NET or similar to the PDO library in PHP. It's that interface, that bridge that will allow our web app and our database to interact and exchange data and move it back and forth. And then we will start on implementing CRUD operations in our in-class application. I think we said last week we started building it out as a music library, if memory serves. So we won't probably get to do all the CRUD operations today, but we'll start this week and then we will continue next Wednesday to complete it. Just before we dive into NoSQL, MongoDB, CRUD operations, one thing that I think we ran out of time to implement last week was actually deployment of our site. So I want to start with that. Deploying your portfolio, which is due next week. That's one of the requirements. So we should probably do a little walkthrough now. We'll take our in-class application and we will get it running in the cloud. So let's fire up our code editor. Right, we were building the Node Tunes application. So we are going to use for deploying the easiest way. There's a few options. You do have a few options in terms of deploying. So I am going to be using the a cloud service known as Heroku. So Heroku was purchased by Salesforce, which is a big software as a service company. They've got one of the largest sort of customer relationship management platforms in the world. Probably lots of you have heard of Salesforce before. So we're going to use Heroku. Deploying to Heroku through a Git repository is quite easy. So we're going to do that. You can actually deploy Node to Azure as well. So I've put a link here, a couple links here with tutorials of how you can deploy Node and Express sites to Azure, but we're going to focus on the Heroku deployment. So the first step in doing this is to get your project up onto GitHub, which some of you may have done already. Bear with me. I want to see if, did I put my stuff up on Git? Oops. Okay, so yes, we did. Here was the, so my project is already up on GitHub, and I have the gitignore folder for Node, the gitignore file for Node, so that you'll notice in my project, the dependencies, the Node modules are not included here. So if you don't have your in-class project running, if you haven't pushed it to GitHub yet, then I want you to do that first, because you're not going to be able to deploy to the Heroku cloud service until your application is in a Git repository. If you need the commands for doing this, you can find them here on Blackboard. inside of the weekly learning and tools and resources. Here are all the commands. I always put them here to reference. So you would need to go to GitHub first and create your repository. Make sure you leave all these boxes unchecked. And then you'll be able to run the Git commands in your terminal. And that will connect your local node music library up with your new repository. So some of you probably haven't done this already. Maybe just kind of you can give me a thumbs up. If your code is already on GitHub, let me know. Okay, thanks, Jason. Or thanks, Bugra. If you're doing the process right now, thanks, Simon. Just give me a thumbs up when it's done. Okay, thanks, Raden. We'll just give people a couple minutes to go through the commands. And if you get lost or stuck, don't panic. Of course, we're recording, so you can always redo this process after class. If you get it up on Heroku right now, great. If you need to do it later using the video screencast, that's fine too. Yep, that's totally fine if you do it later. Yep, great point, Chris. Yeah, you can use the GitHub desktop tool for sure. There is version control even built in. So under Git, I think you can actually connect it right here through the Git menu or the VCS menu if you're in Visual Studio Code. So there's lots of options, lots of ways to do this. I'm sort of old school, so when it comes to Node, I tend to use my command line. I tend not to use these, but I probably could use them. I'll maybe try these out later today. So step one, we'll be getting our code up onto GitHub. And then step two, I'm just going to put a link in the chat. Step two is to go to Heroku.com. Just sign out here for a moment. So here's the Heroku homepage. You can see the different platforms it supports. And there's a sign up button. I would recommend just make it private because eventually you'll be adding your database connection string. So it should probably be private. There's no need for your repo to be public. Simon, don't worry about it for now. It's not a big deal. It's not really a huge problem if the node modules are there. It's ideal. It's best practice to exclude them. So don't worry about it if it's there. In your portfolio assignment, make sure you have the git ignore file in your project before you do any adding or committing of files. But don't worry about it. If the node modules are there, it's not going to break anything. So once you have your code up on GitHub, you can come to the Heroku homepage and you can click the sign up link. Booger, it really doesn't matter. This isn't like Azure, like it's not giving you credits. It will actually just give you 5 free sites kind of permanently. So it really doesn't matter what email you use. For your primary development language, you can pick Node, and it will just send you, Heroku will email you a verification link that you'll need to click on in order to activate the account. So go ahead and create your account. When you log in, you'll get a screen similar to this. It's much cleaner, much simpler interface than the Azure portal. It's very easy to use. Again, maybe just give me a thumbs up once you are here. Once you're into Heroku, thanks, Chris. Adam. Cameron. Raden. Simon. Bugra. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Raymond. Okay, I think I've heard from most of you. So on this main screen, we want to click on the new button right here. We're going to create a new, and we're going to choose create a new app. We can give the app a name, so I'll call mine Node Tunes. And I'll just leave my region as the US and click create. Nope, somebody already took it. Okay, try that. So this creates a new website. It's going to run at the URL mynodetunes.herokuapp.com. So we get 5 free subdomain applications. And then we've got the ability to connect to GitHub. So it'll take us to this deploy screen, and under deployment method, in the middle, we've got GitHub. So I'm going to click on GitHub. Now, I'm already signed into my GitHub account through Heroku. You probably will be prompted here to log into GitHub first. And much like the Azure portal, Heroku will save your GitHub login so you won't have to log in repeatedly. So it shows my GitHub username and my avatar. And now I can just start typing and I'll search for my repository. It finds it. And then there's just a little connect button here. So now Heroku is syncing. I'm going to enable automatic deployment from the master branch. So anytime I push changes to my GitHub repository, I want Heroku to get notified and to pull the latest version. So I'm going to click this gray button that says Enable Automatic Deploys. So it now says automatic deployments from the master branch are enabled. And now I just want to click this deploy branch to start that syncing process. It's grabbing a copy from GitHub and giving us a log of what's happening here. It says our build succeeded. So it passed all of the deployment phases. It says, oh, my app deployment was successful. And now I can just click on view and it's going to try to open the app. And here it is. So it's running at the app name I created, .herokuapp.com. It's got our little nav bar we created last week. So it's using Express, and now we have our site deployed to the cloud. So to deploy your portfolio, it's as simple as what we just did. You're going to push your portfolio site to a Git repository. You'll create a new application in the Heroku portal. And then you'll just connect this new web application to your repository and deploy. And then you can include the Heroku link along with your Git repository. Those are the two links you're going to submit to me on Blackboard for next week. So if you're struggling a bit with getting your code up on GitHub right now, or getting into Heroku, like I said, don't panic. I'm recording it, so you'll be able to watch this a little later today. I would say by 3, 4 o'clock, the video will be published. Are there any questions about the Heroku deployment process? Yeah, Chris, that's good that you found it that way. I found, yeah, it's definitely easier than Azure. I would agree with you. Okay. Jason, if you're getting an application error, make sure that it's running locally first. So you could use NodeMon to start your server. Make sure it runs locally. And much like in Azure, we also have under the Activity tab, it shows all our previous deployments. So if we push a new change to GitHub and then Heroku loads it and we realize something is wrong, we can just click on an earlier deployment to roll back. Okay, so Jason, if it's saying it's in use, what may have happened is you may have shut down your program without stopping the server, which means now you can't run it. So here's the fix for that. You'll have to use your task manager and kill your node process. So we all do it sometimes. We close our code editor, but we don't stop the node server from running. So it just keeps running in the background. Then when we go to start a new application, it says our ports are to use. So you'll see Node.js in your list of processes. You should see it there, Jason. So you should be able to stop it to end the task in Task Manager, and then you should be able to run your app. So you can give that a try. That should fix it. Awesome. Yeah, so make sure it runs. Okay, Cameron, no language could be detected. Okay. Yes, absolutely, Jillian. Okay. Cameron, in here, when you go to settings, scroll down. If it doesn't say Node.js for your framework, you can scroll down where it says build packs. So it may just be that Heroku doesn't recognize your app is using Node. So if you add the Node.js build pack here, you can try that in these settings. I think because I said in my setup, when I registered, I said my normal default language is Node, it automatically defaults to using the Node build pack. So Cameron, give that a try. Let me know how that works. Yeah, okay. So if it says no framework, you can just click add build pack, and then you should be able to pick Node. So with this free plan, we actually get 5 free subdomain websites. If we want a custom domain, I think typically we may have to pay for this. Maybe not. I don't know. You can play around with it. If you have your own domain name, you might be able to attach it to your portfolio. Okay, so we've got things up and running here. Our site's deployed to the cloud. So you'll be able to go through this same deployment process for assignment 1. Create the GitHub repository and push. Create the application on Heroku. And simply connect them together and set up continuous deployment and then deploy your code. And then your site's running online. So now we can start to dive in so you now have everything you need. Sorry, last thing I'll just say about your assignment. You now have everything you need to do the assignment. You know how to create a node site. You know how to use the Express generator. We know how to, add some customizations to the site in terms of kind of the look and the design. And we know how to deploy it to Heroku. So you have all the tools you need to complete assignment 1. You still do have 1 more week to get that wrapped up. So we're going to start working with MongoDB and NoSQL databases. Today, you don't need this for the assignment, for assignment 1, but you will later on for your second assignment. So I'm going to put a link in the chat here. Link to just a simple Excel file that I've put up on OneDrive. So you can first open up this file. And there's 2 columns here. There's a relational database and a NoSQL database. So if you toggle this viewing button here in the middle, if you toggle that to editing, yes, it's here, and we can work on this file in our browser simultaneously. So here's what we're going to do. It's a pretty brief activity. I want you to watch this short video. I think it's 2 minutes long. As you watch, or after you watch the video, I'd like you to note one difference between relational and NoSQL databases. You don't have to put your name to it, but you can click on any cell and make a note as to how they differ. So I'm not going to play the video. The video is here. It's this first link on this intro to NoSQL and MongoDB. I'll also put the link in the chat for you. So I'm going to pause the recording for a couple minutes, wait to watch the video, and add some notes here about the differences between a relational database that we already know about and a NoSQL database, which is new. Okay, so I'll pause the recording here, and let's make some collective notes in this spreadsheet. So we've watched a brief introduction to NoSQL databases. We've got a few notes here comparing the two. So relational databases, yes, they follow schemas, whereas NoSQL databases don't. ACID, so atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability are not always guaranteed in a NoSQL database. So yeah, under a relational database, at least we strive to achieve data ACID, yeah. So NoSQL can be good for using huge amounts of data, that's true. Scaling, this is kind of an important one I think Adam mentioned. So relational databases can scale up, whereas NoSQL databases are really good for scaling out, for distributing our data storage across multiple servers, even across multiple data centers or regions of the world. Relational databases can be slow. They can slow down the larger they get. NoSQL database, yeah, so speed is definitely an issue. It's definitely one of the reasons we use it when we've got a lot of data and we need to access it really quickly. It does not adhere to relational database concepts. Okay, all these things are true. So how would you decide, when would you think it would be right to use a relational database? When might it be right to use a NoSQL database? What would be some business cases, or how would you make that decision if you were having to architect a new application? For years and years, we only had relational databases, but now we have this other option. So when would you use which one? Okay, so Chris, depends on budget and volume of data. Okay, Berger said if the models are strictly connected, it would be better to use SQL. So yeah, so how structured is the data that we have? Not only how structured, but also well-structured and complex data. What would be an example? Like what kind of application would we have well-structured complex data, for example? Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah, banks, sales, potentially. Yeah, good suggestion, Adam. Okay. And what would be a good fit for a NoSQL database, where we had huge amounts of data, where speed was important, where our data wasn't particularly complex? Okay. Yeah, video streaming, right? The data is relatively simple. We might have subscribers and videos and a few categories, but the media, the music store, because it depends how complicated it is. So the general kind of guideline, remote office could be, yep, good suggestion, Adam. So the main factors, I know, I got it. The main factors we have to consider are how complex is the data, number one. How fast is the data likely to grow? How many users need to access it? And how important is performance? So something like, for example, a mobile app that we're going to release to the public with thousands of users. Mobile apps, they tend to be fairly simple. So many mobile applications use a back-end NoSQL database, like MongoDB. If we're building an Android app, we might use something like Google Firebase. Those are NoSQL databases. Whereas more complex applications, something like a financial institution or a system like Blackboard, that is a very complex data model. It doesn't have an unlimited number of users, for example, we're probably going to use a relational database. So I did update the link here. There's one other short video I'll pause again to watch. And this time, just my question is, what are some of the benefits of using MongoDB? And you can even just put these answers in the chat. So again, I'll pause the recording for 2-3 minutes while you watch the video. Try to list one thing in the chat, one reason to use MongoDB. Sorry, I'll just repeat those comments. I forgot to restart my recording. So we're looking at, watch a brief video about why we would use it. It's scalable and flexible. Just reading the student comments. Read operations are really fast. It uses JSON. Any other reasons that we would use MongoDB? Or we might consider it for our database engine, for our application? Yep, it's cross-platform. That's right, Jillian. If you look at my screen, we can also see it's become one of the most popular, probably the most popular non-relational database in the world. And you can see the growth year over year, that it's becoming more and more popular. So this is kind of far and away the world's most popular NoSQL database. Which means lots of users, lots of documentation, lots of support. And it's also not a new product. I think they mentioned in the video that it was actually created back in 2007. It's been around for a while. Yep, we can implement separate clusters so we can pop data in from different labs and class assignments without worrying about breaking everything. Yep, absolutely, that's true. Okay, so while MongoDB is not the only NoSQL database, it's pretty clearly the industry leader and has been for quite some time. Yeah, if we look at Firebase, which I know we use in our Android course, it's quite a ways down the list in terms of how popular it is. Microsoft also offers their own, which is not, I don't see it on this list, called Cosmos DB, which is a document. A document or NoSQL database is basically the same thing. So one of the things we're going to have to do is learn some new terminology. Yep, and still climbing. All right, what time is it? It's 11:49. So I think what we will do, yes, thanks, Joey. I think what we'll do, let's take a 10-minute break here. So we've kind of looked at a little bit of at a very high level, a brief intro to NoSQL. I've got a little slide deck here I want to go over. It's not that long, where we'll talk about NoSQL databases and in general and MongoDB in a little more detail. And then we'll get our feet wet. We'll actually set up a MongoDB database in the cloud, and then we can get it to start talking to our node application. Okay, so let's take a 10-minute break here. We will come back at noon.